Welcome back, guys, to another video. I wanted to give my insight and my take on this entire breakdown of Shakur's boxing game. And I, maybe about a week ago, I did a video about Shakur and talked about how he's not a boring fighter, and I still believe that he's not. And I think the criticism that comes towards Shakur is because his potential and his overall skill set is so immense. There's so many facets to his boxing regimen, his boxing toolkit. His arsenal is replete with so much options. He can slug it out. He's a boxer. He just chooses not to. He has the power and the pop, probably not the power and the pop of a Tank, because Shakur doesn't sit on his punches as Tank does. I believe that if Shakur sat on his punches will be much harder. But to sit on your punches means that you have to take a considerable amount of risk. Because sitting on your punches means that you're not on your toes and you're not in a position to dodge punches or in a position to have your head on a swivel where you're moving it back and forth. But I think that the criticism of Shakur comes because people who know boxing, they see the potential of greatness in his skill set. He reminds me a lot of Mayweather. I'm gonna say, I know people hate to say that. Just like when Jordan Jordan retired, if you said anybody reminded you of Jordan, people just lost their damn minds, as if you just committed a grave sin. I'm not saying he's Floyd. I'm just saying his slickness, his ability to counter punch, his ability to evade punches and move back. He reminds me of Money Mayweather, not Pretty Boy, but the Money Mayweather, because Pretty Boy was more of on the offense. He was more aggressive and attacked more. But if you look back at Floyd Mayweather's knockout ratio, it's not very high. The percentages weren't very high. The problem I have with Shakur is the fact that he feels the need to apologize to fans after fights. I don't think he needs to make an apology. When you beat a guy in the ring, another professional boxer, unanimously, when all three judges see that you just dominated the fighter, I don't see why you need to apologize for your performance. Even the fight against De Los Santos, was that the ideal fight for Shakur? Of course not. But Shakur was not in the ideal position. He was not in an ideal position in regard to his health. His hands were messed up. One of his hands were messed up. Essentially, he was fighting with one hand. Now, people want to make the comparison and say, well, Tank fought with one hand against Pitbull Cruz, and he didn't run like Shakur did. Well, Shakur's a different fighter. Shakur does not like to get hit, and as a boxer, you shouldn't want to like to get hit. I just think that fighters like Crawford, they tend to take more risks. Bud Crawford, they tend to take more risks, and they're more likely to have an exchange in the ring, which would automatically draw excitement from fans, because they're seeing two boxers in the ring just exchange blows. And I believe that if you're a fan and that's what you're looking for, that's low level, that's low IQ boxing to me. In terms of a fan, a lot of times as fans, we like to talk about the IQ of boxers and say, oh, this boxer has low IQ, this boxer has high IQ. Well, I think as fans, if you call yourself a boxing fan, if you're a boxing purist, if you're not a casual and you just love boxing for the art that it is, because boxing has different forms, you would appreciate all forms of boxing. There would be no such thing as, oh, I want to see the guys throw more punches. Well, if Shakur's style is a style that's not preferable to you, then your opinion of him being a boring fighter really doesn't mean shit. It really doesn't mean anything. That's just your opinion. That's more indicative and more of a commentary to your IQ than it is to Shakur's IQ. I would argue and say Shakur's IQ is high because he still wants his brains intact. He still wants to leave the game of boxing when he retires to still have his mental faculties intact. He doesn't want to have Parkinson's. He doesn't want to have brain problems. He doesn't want to have issues with nerves. He doesn't want to have brain swelling after he's done boxing. He doesn't want all that stuff. He doesn't want to sustain brain damage over a long haul of taking blows. So that to me is smart, and I commend that in him. Now, if people have a big problem with the way he fights, as I said before, get somebody in there to beat his ass. If you don't get somebody in there to beat him. But I think it's going to be very hard to beat Shakur. The only person that could beat Shakur are the judges. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If the judges see him fighting and they don't prefer his style, let's say he fights a fight, he's being super careful. He's not really letting his hands go, but he's scoring on points. He's hitting the other fighter more than he's getting hit. I can see judges giving the fight to the aggressor. Let's say he fights a fighter like Tank, and Tank is the one coming forward. And for the most part, most of the fight, Shakur was fighting off of his back foot, doing a good job at it, hitting Tank with shots. Tank doesn't really land a lot of shots. The CompuBox number says that Shakur landed more punches. As a matter of fact, it says that Shakur landed more power punches because Shakur was never in a position to allow Tank to land power punches. Not that Tank did not land any, but in terms of who landed more power punches, that advantage went to Shakur. But I can still see a fight like that where the eye test that tells you that Shakur won, I can see them still giving the victory to Tank, just to make a statement that we're not going to tolerate this type of style. But I think that it's unfair because boxing, you have to outbox me. It doesn't mean outfight me. Boxing and fighting are different. Boxing entails elements of fighting, but boxing is a higher umbrella. Boxing is the overarching element that entails the art form of fighting, but boxing is it's an academic. It's a discipline. It requires strategy and thinking. Whereas if you're fighting, it's more off of impulse. This is where you get the term flight or fight, right? When you're impulsive and you're just fighting just to survive. Boxers are not like that. They're tactical. Now, you may prefer another fighter style versus Shakur style, and you're entitled to your own opinion. But I don't think that should warrant Shakur apologizing to fans because they didn't see. Because when you do that, when you make an apology, you are admitting that you did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. If you beat the hell out of your opponent, you did the right thing. If you left that ring with your mental faculties intact, you did the right thing. Now, the fans may not be happy. So my number one thing for the boxing world, for everyone out there saying that Shakur is boring, that he doesn't let his hands go, and blah, 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 find somebody to beat him. Until somebody beats him, everyone needs to shut the hell up. Beat a guy like that. And you see how hard it is to beat him. And honestly, to be honest with you guys, the fighter of Shakur, the fight that I saw him fight against Yoshino, are you guys trying to tell me honestly? Let's be logical here. Let's insert a little bit of common sense in this video. Are you trying to tell me that all of a sudden that Shakur forgot how to box, forgot how to let his hands go? He let his hands go against Yoshino, and Yoshino was aggressive. Yoshino is a come-forward fighter. I think that there's something desperately wrong with his hands. I think that his hands were hurt, obviously, against De Los Santos. He was literally running backwards. Now, if you want to say running, that was a fight that I would say, okay, he was on the back. He was on his bicycle a lot. Okay? Against Artem, he wasn't on his bicycle. He just didn't let his hands go as much as people wanted. But I still thought he let his hands go. Artem just refused to not give up. Artem didn't take the knee. He devastated Artem. Go ask Artem how he felt after that fight. Just because Artem didn't have a closed eyes and a busted nose and blood all over his face doesn't mean that Shakur didn't hurt him. Shakur punished him for 12 rounds. Well, I would say 11. The first round was kind of like a fill-out round. But from second round and on, and moving forward to the 12th round, Shakur annihilated him. The body blows. Go watch the fight again and see how many body shots Artem was taking. When I say take it, I don't mean in a good way. He was hurt. And a lot of times you would see Artem kind of bounce around trying to gain his breath, gain back his equilibrium. Yeah. It's just that Shakur wasn't going to be undisciplined and just go in, just throwing loosely, because that's how you can actually get caught as well on the counter when you get too aggressive, thinking that, oh, this is my chance to take my opponent out. Shakur is too smart. He's going to outbox you, and in the process of outboxing you, if he gets the KO, he gets it. If he doesn't get it, he's fine. So Shakur, if you're listening to this, don't let anybody push you to try to get knockouts. That's not your MO. You're not a knockout boxer. Can you knock out boxers? Yes, you can. But it has to be organically done. You can't go seeking it out. You're not a Tank. Let Tank be Tank and you be Shakur. And if you ask me who has the better boxing style, like if I wanted to watch boxing and the full artistry of boxing, I would rather watch Shakur fight because the way he just looks so damn polished. If I just want to see a brutal match, and see a possible knockout, then I watch Tank. I'm not saying that Tank's not exciting. He is, because when a fighter gets in the ring and has a 90+% knockout rate, that's exciting in itself, just to see if he can knock out another boxer. But to me, to see how a boxer has the ability to be slick, counter your punches, have the shoulder roll, have the speed and quick reflexes, the quick hands, the accuracy, man, everything about Shakur is just splendid. Splendid. He's more of a skilled boxer than Tank. Tank is just he's just scary, because yes, he has skill, but his skill is more here. Shakur's skill is here and in his physical display. You won't see the style of being slick with Tank. No, he's just very strategic. He's thinking. He's like a computer, just downloading things, and it seems boring at first, but once he has the complete picture of the download, he takes you out. But Shakur does the same thing. Shakur's doing the same thing while being busy. Okay, and I would argue and say that Shakur is more of a busier fighter in the earlier rounds than Tank is. If you watch most of Tank's fights, the first 4 to 5 rounds, he's really not doing much. It's when he's downloaded information and kind of has a better eye on his opponent's tendencies, then of course he starts to let his hands go a little bit more and starts to pressure the other fighters. But it's hard to pressure somebody that you can't hit, and it's hard to pressure a counterpuncher. So I think that this idea that everyone thinks that Tank is going to just come in the ring and just knock out Shakur if they had a fight, it's going to be a harder fight for Tank than most would think, because most fighters that Tank has fought are come forward fighters. Most of those Mexican fighters come forward. Rolly was a come forward fighter. I would say maybe Frank Martin was probably the only one that was a little bit kind of tactical, but Frank Martin came forward as well. The reflexes of Shakur is going to make it very, very difficult for Tank to land those power punches that he wants, and it will frustrate Tank. And I believe that Shakur is too smart in the latter rounds. Let's say Tank feels like he's losing on the scorecards, and Tank tries to let his hands go more in the later rounds. Tank won't touch Shakur. He'll just keep moving back, counter, jab, move back, and then people are gonna say it was a boring fight, and people are gonna say Shakur ran all night and that's why he won. But then again, I don't think that the judges will give Shakur the victory, because Tank is a bigger draw. So I guess in a grand scheme, they think that letting Tank win is better for boxing than letting him lose when it goes to the scorecards. The only way Shakur can come out victorious against Tank, he has to literally outbox the shit out of Tank, and that's not going to happen. Tank is not going to get outboxed to that degree. Not like the way Artem got outboxed, you're not going to see Tank get outboxed that way, because if Shakur's letting his hands go that close in the pocket, you better believe that Tank is going to put his lights out. Okay, so Shakur is going to be too careful in that fight, and I believe that the judges won't allow that. Even though you can see, kind of like the Loma and Haney fight. Like, I watched the fight, I thought Loma won, but then the judges gave it to Haney. I think that's the better narrative for boxing. It just wouldn't look good for an older boxer, at the end of his prime, giving him the win, where it wasn't clearly evident, because that's what I mean. It has to be clearly evident that you dominated your opponent for the judges to strip the champion away, especially when the side A would be Tank in the fight. If Shakur and Tank fought, Tank would be the A side and Shakur would be the B side, because Tank is the bigger draw. So in order for the bigger draw to lose his status, he has to be dominated. If he's not dominated, they're gonna give the fight to Tank. Y'all seen that? I've seen it happen many of times, which is what makes boxing so sad, because some of the outcomes in these matches are subjective and arbitrary. None of it is definitive. It's just judges doing whatever the hell they want. We all have the eye test. The ability, when you watch a boxing match, is to see who's hitting the other boxer more. And aggression counts, but you can be aggressive. If you're aggressive and you're not landing any punches, then why should you be given a victory just because you're more aggressive? And in terms of being on the retreat, how are you retreating? Are you retreating back the way Shakur did against De Los Santos, where he's literally just backing up? That doesn't look good. But if you're retreating, like backing up a little bit, punch, back up, punch, I don't think there's nothing wrong. there's anything wrong with that. The way Shakur fought Artem, that's not running. I didn't look at Shakur running. He's just a defensive fighter. But he's a defensive fighter with offensive weaponry. To me, he's more complete fighter than Tank. Tank is just dangerous. Tank has that ultimate equalizer, that power. In the speed and the cat-like reflexes of Shakur, I believe will cause problems for a boxer like Tank, because he's never fought a guy with those cat reflexes, and that's quick and that's accurate, that's defensive first. Most fighters that Tank fights are offensive minded, which is why he capitalizes on your offense, because he counters the shit out of you. Look at what he did to Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia just came in there just throwing hooks, and he countered the shit out of him. Put him out to the body. Because when you open yourself up to punch, you leave that area open. He just countered him. Shakur doesn't fight like that. He's not going to let his hands loose that way. He's too intelligent. Because he's thinking, you know when they tell you to be a defensive driver, to drive for other people, don't assume that someone's going to do this or do that. Think the worst in the ring. Think of the worst when you're on the road. Always be defensive. If you're driving behind a car, drive 3 cars behind, because you have to assume that maybe the driver in front of you may slam their brakes. Because if you're too close, if the driver in front of you slams their brakes, you're going to end up hitting them in the rear. Pause. All right? So that's the way Shakur fights. He thinks of the worst. And as he's overthinking of the worst, he's not going to allow you to punish him. But he'll get his licks off. So I think that amateur style that he brings to the professional level may be frowned upon, but at the end of the day, it's boxing. And if you guys are not satisfied with his boxing style, and that's fine, it's your opinion. You're entitled to, have your preferences in terms of style of boxers that you choose. But what I will say to that is that then we need to just find somebody to beat Shakur's ass. Let's just do that. Let's find boxers that are just eliminate him to get him out of the way. But until then, he's still one of the top boxers in the game right now, because his skill set is just incredible. You can't deny it. All right, that's my spiel. That's my take. And leave a comment to me what you guys think, and I'll give you guys another video at another time. All right, take care. All right, bye. Peace.